So what your changes are, you may say, hey, look, right now it's all underground, but maybe that's going to change to something else, and whatever that is, maybe that part of the lease agreement, and you have that discussion, and that becomes an amendment to the lease agreement.
And keep in mind, anything like in the air, as an example, when we talk about restricted air, that the FAA does not like giving up more airspace because of the cost of the canned flights or your commercial flights, just rerouting them a little bit. Seems like pennies on the dollar, but when they're doing the routes that they're doing and the cost of fuel and everything else, it's a huge deal to that civilian industry. So they're not in the business of approving a much more restricted airspace. Now we're changing elevations on a little bit of ours, but trying to expand restricted airspace is I would say almost unheard of in the land of the FAA right now. And when they do that, or any of those land use or air use agreements, that they also have public comment periods, and there's a whole public process for that type of stuff as well.
There's a 30-page strategic plan that details in like 3 or 5 year increments what Camp Grayling's plans are for like the next 25 years. In that 30-page strategic plan for the National Guard, specifically Camp Grayling, it specifically says that one of their objectives is to expand the airspace of Camp Grayling. It specifically says that. Are you aware of that, yes or no?
I of course am aware of that, and I think you're parsing a statement, and the reason I say that is we are looking at raising an altitude over our current restricted.
It said horizontally. It specifically said horizontally. It said horizontally and vertically, but it specifically said horizontally.
So the Air Guard is working on our different memorandums of agreement with Airspace, which still falls under our same department. It is not there.
Oh, so in other words, the National Air, in other words, the National Air Guard could
not over any of these areas like you questioned earlier. We have no desire to increase that restriction.
But it's in the strategic plan. That and 29 other pages of stuff are in the strategic plan. It specifically says one of the goals of the National Guard in the next 5 years or 3 years is to expand the airspace horizontally and vertically.
Not over.
And you're saying that they're not going to expand the airspace, the restricted airspace.
Your question to me earlier tonight was, are we going to expand the restricted airspace over these areas?
Yes.
Camp Grayling has no desire to restrict.
Does any other branch of the National Guard intend to do that?
I have not looked at what the last proposals I saw from the Air Force was to go. It's the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, which is also a state department, asking the Department of Natural Resources, the other state department, for the land use. So if you put money in one pocket and put it in your other pocket, you still have the same kind of money. So that's why there's no financial gain.
Is Velocity doing this for free?
What's that?
Is Velocity doing this for free?
Velocity Management?
Yeah.
They have not made $1, I can tell you today, from anything at Camp Grayling. I've heard that thrown out there. I've seen some photos, I guess, that folks forwarded me out there. They have not made $1 at Camp Grayling. Decades. We were training, they were dropping bombs as they were training for World War I and World War II into Dead Man's Swamp, out in the Lake Huron, all those things from decades and decades ago. So we've been working with those other full components now since almost the inception of the camp.
Trusting, and you'll probably laugh, but we're trusting that the people that's operating within our woods and our environment are going to do the right thing and act accordingly. It's no different than, we have campers during deer camp. Are people dumping their waste in their campers out? I don't know. But those are all the risks that we have to take into account when we look at some of these things. What? Yes, I understand. All those potential risks could have an impact on the water. That's there every day. That will be there whether this expansion goes through or not. Those are the risks that we have to look at with anything that we do, from logging to oil and gas to ORVs to anything else that's out there. that is part of that risk that, we evaluate when we're looking at approving those activities.
I have one other thing I want to say, and I've been wanting to say this for 15 meetings that I've attended. I'm deeply disappointed in you, Tom Barnes. You are supposed to be our advocate. Anybody that attends these meetings, anybody, if you weren't wearing the shirt you were wearing, and if you didn't identify yourself as part of the DNR, anybody would think that you are a representative of Camp Grayling, because you sound like a lobbyist for Camp Grayling. Whether you realize it or not, whether you accept it or not, that's how you're perceived. You're supposed to represent us. We employ you. We employ the DNR director. You're supposed to be asking these questions on our behalf. Instead, you're up there trying to justify why this isn't a risk, why Camp Grayling should be allowed to do this. I'm deeply, deeply disappointed in you, and I wanted to say that to your face.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your sarcasm.
Yep.
Okay, so this video is titled The Militarization of Michigan. It is part of the Camp Grayling expansion video series I've created for this channel. The purpose of this video is to raise public awareness and understanding of the current initiatives that would result in a militarization of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. This includes the creation of the National All-Domain Warfighting Center, Camp Grayling's proposal to more than double its size using public land, and various defense industry use of Michigan as an unofficial proving ground for testing new weapons and technologies. It also includes an airspace expansion proposal that has been put forward by the Michigan National Guard. I'm going to run through a timeline of significant events that have occurred over the past few years and that have raised concerns for thousands of local citizens, local governments, and conservation and recreational groups. My timeline starts with Senator Gary Peters, Debbie Stabenow, and Representatives Jack Bergman, Alyssa Slotkin, and Lisa McLean, in different ways utilizing their influence on the Senate and House Armed Services Committee to market Michigan as an ideal location for increased military training using our four-season climate, our expansive wilderness, our large freshwater lakes, and existing military capabilities as reasons that Michigan would be a great place to expand military training. Not certain if Senator Stabenow is on the Armed Services Committee, but I know she has been an advocate for expanding military training in Michigan. So next in my timeline, 2018, Gretchen Whitmer was elected as Michigan's governor. She has not publicly shared her opinion on the military expansion proposals. She has not responded to the thousands of emails and letters that citizens have sent her with anything more than a canned email thanking the citizens for contacting her office. So it's the same one, at least all the ones I've seen posted in our Camp Grayling expansion Facebook group have been just a generic reply. Now, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Michigan National Guard, we would expect her to have an opinion and share that opinion. As the governor, we would hope it would coincide with our Pure Michigan quality of life and her putting Michiganders first motto that she campaigned on. I guess time will tell what her opinion is on this. She's been hearing from a lot of us. In 2019, a joint land use study was conducted on the Camp Grayling Joint Maneuver Training Center and Alpena Combat Readiness Center areas. I've read the study. It's very long, but it is publicly available for anyone who wants to read it themselves. It goes through a variety of different topics for each area. When I read it, my impression of the study is that it was conducted with a mission to identify how the government and military can work together to ensure that the military's mission for these areas is the first priority. It briefly discusses many ways that these communities and citizens have been negatively impacted by the military and things that can be done to improve the public's acceptance of the expanding military presence. Most of it appeared to focus on how to ensure community growth and development will not interfere with military goals and operations, and whether it's purchasing privately owned land, leasing public land, encouraging local governments to change zoning rules. Many of the recommendations were not in the best interest of local citizens. It was more on restricting development and limiting what private landowners can do around existing military areas, and if they don't want to agree, maybe buy the property. So whether it was intentional or not, the intent that came across to me from this joint land use study was to put military first, not Michigan citizens, and I think people should read it. In 2019, Governor Whitmer appointed Paul Rogers as the Adjutant General of the Michigan National Guard and the Michigan Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. And he says once he was in his new post, he had a vision of how all the military capabilities in Michigan should be combined. This led to the creation of the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. In the summer of 2020, the National All-Domain Warfighting Center was unveiled. It encompasses the National Guard's Camp Grayling, Alpena, Battle Creek, and Selfridge bases, along with their special use and restricted airspace. It also includes the existing combined technology infrastructure for cyber warfare, electronic warfare simulations, and space-based intelligence capabilities. According to Adjutant General Rogers, based on military and defense industry relationships and the unique geography of northern Michigan, combined with our high-tech infrastructure, Michigan is an ideal proving grounds. The problem with this is that none of Michigan's military installations are proving grounds. They are training areas and training facilities. In August of 2020, Colonel Scott Myers became camp commander of the Camp Grayling Joint Maneuver Training Center. In September of 2020, the Kelly Johnson All-Domain Innovation Center was unveiled at the Selfridge base. The stated goal in the unveiling article I read was to bring together military, academia, and industry partners to foster innovation in the defense sector. In November of 2020, a company named Velocity Management Solutions, LLC, was founded by Steve Jacobs, who just happens to have been a friend of Colonel Myers for decades. In January of 2021, VMS received a memorandum of agreement, making them an official entry point for private defense industry companies to come in and use the military facilities at the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. And this is to test and experiment with their new products and technologies using military capabilities and military facilities and military land, and in some cases on public land that's been leased by the military. Many citizens in our Camp Grayling expansion Facebook group have questioned how a brand new company could be awarded a military contract so quickly. They can't even hire a food truck without going through the state contracting and bidding process. So it came as a surprise when we started researching the history. This MOA gave private companies a gatekeeper, so to speak, to facilitate A.G. Rogers' new vision. He wanted to increase the use of military capabilities for defense and civilian industries. The quote from him that I read said, "It was a way for us to take all of the separate entities and put them into one brand and then present it to the Michigan market and the national market as a resource that can be harvested. This is definitely not the kind of harvesting we expect to see in pure Michigan. The harvesting we see the most is cutting down trees for timber sales. This just seems to me to be a way for private industries to bypass going to recognized military proving grounds that may have more stringent requirements. It's just my opinion. In October of 2021, the Michigan National Guard was selected for a 200-position intelligence and electronic warfare battalion that is to be stood up by 2026. In January of 2022, a Lansing-based development company purchased some dilapidated hotel buildings and land down in downtown Grayling to build a new apartment complex. At a public meeting that was held at Kirtland Community College, Colonel Myers said he brought the developers to the area. A recent article has quoted the Grayling city manager saying Camp Grayling officials approached the city with a contact for a developer because they needed more availability of short-term apartment rentals for people who were going to be coming to work on the base. And this 103 apartment complex will fulfill that need. Now, these apartments some of them will also be rented to the public at market value. This development was granted an 8-year tax abatement by the city, and the city is still working to identify solutions to our low-income housing shortage we've had for a long time in our community. Next in the timeline is in early 2022, the Camp Grayling land expansion proposal was presented to the director of the Michigan DNR. This position has the sole authority to approve or deny leases of public land in Michigan. I didn't know that until this proposal came out. So one individual makes the decision. The National Guard would like to more than double their land footprint by leasing an additional 162,000 acres of public land. Now, instead of making an immediate decision, based on their proposal, the DNR presented the proposal for public comment period. This actually came to the public's attention because of an article, and otherwise I don't know that people would have even found out that it was being proposed. So the public comment period was supposed to end in July of 2022. The public comment period has since been extended indefinitely and will continue throughout the process. I'll cover more about that proposal later in this video. The next notable date is November 14th, 2022. Anyone from northern Michigan will recognize this as the day before firearm deer season starts, almost a national holiday up here. This is the date the proposal was released. And the airspace expansion proposal is to add 1,633 additional nautical miles and change the elevations of the special use airspace for Alpena Air Base down to as low as 300 feet in some areas, and 500 feet in some residential areas. This would increase air pollution, wildfires, and have negative impacts on wildlife and freshwater resources. The initial public comment period for this was set to only last 1 month, originally expiring on December 14th, which would have only given people firearm deer season, Thanksgiving, and then less than 2 weeks to discover their proposal, read it and understand it, which is a challenge, and then comment on it. The public input period has been extended to January 14th of 2023. I do realize that's just in a couple of days, and I really should have made this video weeks ago, but holidays, life, things get in the way. So I hope they extend it further. I would still submit public comments, even if they are past the expiration of the comment period. They're going to have a 45-day review period before they submit their proposals, so they may still accept them. And if we're lucky, they'll extend it further. Now, that's at the end of the the timeline of significant events that led me to the title of Militarization of Michigan for this video. The initiatives underway will impact much more than just the Camp Grayling area. It appears to me and to a large group of citizens to be a collaboration between politicians, military officials, and private industry to take advantage of our pristine wilderness, and with what I consider to be minimal concern for how it will impact the environment or citizens. This rebranded National All-Domain Warfighting Center is being marketed to the private industry, and in some articles there have been references to subleasing military training areas to private industry so they can test their new weapons and technologies, which really surprised me. I thought it could only be performed on recognized military proving grounds, not in military training areas, and certainly not on leased public land or near residential areas. So I found that to be a bit concerning. I'm going to briefly cover the Camp Grayling expansion proposal next. And I'm going to bring up a map to show. Okay, now I'm going to go over the visual of what the Camp Grayling expansion means. I think describing it is not the same as seeing it on a map where it's going to be. This here is the Michigan DNR Interactive Public Viewer Map for Camp Grayling expansion. You can find it on the DNR's website. You can find it if you search Google for Michigan DNR Camp Grayling Interactive Map. I would recommend using it on a computer. It is usable on a smartphone. It's just not user-friendly. It's not user-friendly on a computer. So, on this map, here, let me zoom out a little bit and give you, so there's the mitten. We zoom in. This is in the heart of northern lower peninsula. And this is showing us what they already have. So, all this camouflage print here, not the map surrounding, but this camouflage print, this is all existing Camp Grayling footprint. These red pieces are impact zones. I could probably turn those off. There's a legend on the right that lets you remove things and add things. Okay. The black lines are fences. So this is their existing footprint. You can see here, it's right by Hartwick Pines State Park, if you know where Higgins Lake or Houghton Lake is, or, you know, over here is Traverse City, Kalkaska. Now, this is around 148,000 acres. About 100,000 of that is land that's public land that is already leased from the DNR. And what they are proposing is to add an additional 162,000 acres. So they want to more than double their footprint, even though they are already the largest National Guard training facility in the country. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the 6 areas they have proposed to expand into, and you will get to see the full visual of what their final footprint would be if this proposal were approved. Okay, so those are the 6 areas that they want to expand into. So this pushes it over near Lewiston, closer to Kalkaska, down by Higgins Lake and Houghton Lake, which they weren't that close to before. There are also a significant number of private properties in here that, you know, will show up as areas that are not filled in. And then there are some properties the DNR has already pulled out because they're not legally allowed to be leased. So all these little pockets in here are ones that they can't lease. But you'll see over here how close it comes to West Twin and East Twin Lake. Up here is Waters and Otsego, and then over here. So this land would sit on top of the headwaters of the Asaba River, the headwaters of the Manistee, and both of those feed out into one One goes to Lake Michigan, one goes to Lake Huron. So there are a lot of concerns about the environmental impact of this. Not only water pollution, ground pollution, impact to the forest, also public usage, and the impact on residents and citizens that come up here for recreation, and the impact on property values and recreational tourism. So there are a lot of concerns with this. There are other videos on this channel that go into detail about the various concerns with these areas and this proposal. You know, the National Guard has not been a good steward of the environment and the land that they already have. So we're not understanding why the DNR would even entertain this proposal. It might be that they're required to. The Adjutant General who's requesting it and the DNR Director who has to approve or deny it are both appointed by Governor Whitmer. So, you know, it's probably up to their boss whether or not they can whether or not the DNR Director can outright deny it. Now, since this proposal was brought forward, the DNR Director has changed. It was originally Dan Eichinger, and for 7 months, our group of citizens that are opposed, and all the township boards and commissions and environmental organizations that are opposed, were sending everything to him. And then at the end of December, or sometime in December, Governor Whitmer announced that she was moving him to a different department, and we were going to have interim director Shannon Lott. So I will include contact information for them. Send them emails, send them letters, call them, give them your opinion. Also on this map, you can add a comment. I'm not going to go through that process on this video just because I'm trying to keep it a manageable length, but I wanted everyone to see just what that looks like when we talk about more than doubling their size. So this is a significant portion of the Northern Lower Peninsula. And for those who just travel through the area and don't really know these towns, this is the joining of 27 and 75. So I'm sure you've all came to this fork where it joins together right before Grayling, and all of these areas around it are at risk. So that is just a quick summary of the visual of what Camp Grayling's proposal looks like. Okay, so I am going to do my best to explain what the airspace expansion proposal means from a land footprint, or I guess overland footprint, because most of this proposal describes that the airspace use doesn't affect the land, which I don't agree with that. This is the draft environmental assessment that was released for the airspace expansion. It is publicly available. You can download it and read it. I just wanted to kind of go through a quick visual of why I didn't use this document for this presentation or for this video. It's really hard to read. So when you get to, this is the disclosure statement, basically saying it's a draft. And then, let's see. It's saying public comment is available, and then saying that it doesn't include anything it shouldn't. So at the beginning of this, there's this information. Written comments get sent here, and then take a look at this email address. Oh my gosh, that is hard to type in. So I will put that in the comments of this video. So if you feel like sending comments, you can. It does have a table of contents, and you'll see in the table of contents there are a lot of different alternatives. So I'm really just going to give a visual. One more thing that makes this really hard to read is when we get down here to acronyms and abbreviations. So if you don't read a lot of these documents, which I didn't until the Camp Grayling expansion proposal came about, you're having to turn back to this acronym and abbreviation page frequently just to understand what you're reading. So I did take some of the images from this document and I'm going to show them in this video, but I'm not going to scroll through the video or through the document to find them during the video because it would take me forever. So, airspace visual, we're going to go here. Oh, I started with the wrong image. Okay, so we're going to start with the current airspace. Now this airspace is the Alpena Special Use Airspace, the Alpena Combat Readiness Training Center. Sorry, I don't usually say the whole name, I just call it the Alpena base. So this is a National Guard base in northern Michigan. It's hard to see on this map, but this is the mitten, the top of the mitten for Michigan. This here is the thumb underneath this blue area right here. So this airspace expansion actually impacts the entire northeast corner of the northern Lower Peninsula, including here, which is Camp Grayling. It reaches all the way down to the thumb. It goes all the way up here and out into Lake Huron. So it's not just the Grayling location. If you pull up the environmental assessment online, you can zoom in on this and look at these numbers here. This is what the airspace is named. So you come down here to the bottom and you look for R4201B. It's saying it can go from the surface up to 9,000 feet. That's a restricted airspace, which means, I believe that means only military can use it. Now, the proposal does have a lot of changes for this area out here. The area I'm focusing on for this presentation is this area because it has the highest impact to residential areas and it coincides with the Camp Grayling expansion, or the Camp Grayling proposal to expand the land footprint. Now, this green here with the lines, that is a temporary airspace. And if we look down here, it is Grayling temporary MOA. It's 5,000 to almost 18,000 feet. So that airspace is only active when they request it for special trainings, like their Northern Strike exercise. So only, a couple weeks a year is this airspace activated. It's not a year-round use. Now, next, I guess I should have numbered these so they would come up in the right order, but I'm going to show you a 3D of the current airspace. So this just lays it out better so you can see what they are from an altitude standpoint. So on that previous picture, there was, say you wanted to see where Pike East MOA is. This gives you kind of an altitude rating. You can look at these. So Pike East, 5,000 feet. Grayling temporary MOA, 5,000 feet. This one out here is restricted. Red is restricted. Steelhead MOA here. That one's 6,000 feet. So you see on here, the lowest one is Pike East MOA of 300 feet. That's this one, this purple one out here. And so I am going to go on to the proposed airspace. And this is the part that's very concerning to local residents and people who use this area for recreation. Anyone who has a tourism business in the area may be affected. So this is the proposed modifications. And you'll see these, if you compare the two images, these two are significantly different. Like this area out here is modified. They created a couple new designations. But the most notable one that I wanted to point out in this video is this Grayling MOA here that they want to change. So instead of having a temporary MOA for a couple weeks a year for their large exercises, they want to have year-round Grayling East and year-round Grayling West MOAs. And that would mean we would have low flights coming over all year round, all year long. It's not that easy to see when I zoom in here, but the Grayling West MOA is as low as 500 feet. So this one here, and this one here is much higher, but those are over residential areas. Not all of it is residential, but a significant portion of it is. So Grayling East MOA, it's more visible on this image. That one goes down as low, or Grayling East goes as low as 10,000 feet. Grayling West goes as low as 500 feet. Now, most people have never heard fighter jets in person, but they are loud. Now, right now, the primary use is the A-10s that we see here. The future plan for, I think what they're calling them is 5th generation warcraft or aircraft is the F-22 and F-35. They are also using F-16s right now, but here in our area, we see A-10s the most. They fly very low. And the leading video in this was actually a jet flying over one of these training grounds right above residential area on the river. So that is what we see when they have this temporary MOA in place. And if you look at this, this is the existing and proposed annual sorties. That's annual flights. They call them sorties because it's kind of an exercise involving flight. It came from somewhere, but this means annual flights. So currently, when we look at the Grayling temporary MOA, there are 309 flights that we hear come over during that couple-week-long period in the fall, couple-week-long period in the winter, when they're doing their big exercises. Now, if they change it to a year-round usage, it's going to jump up to this. So we're going to go from 300 to 1,600 flights, as low as 500 feet. From a citizen standpoint, it's very invasive. When you are having a conversation next to with someone next to you, and a jet flies over or is even coming in, you can't even hear them speaking. It's that loud. The negative impact on citizens and recreation would be significant. The lower flights also cause more air pollution. They have a higher tendency to cause wildfire because of the chaff and flare that they use. This is over a lot of pretty much untouched forest, wilderness area, and we already have a lot of wildfires, a significant amount caused by the existing Camp Grayling training, and this would increase our wildfire risk to year-round, and it just is unbelievable to me that they don't consider this to have any impact, any notable impact to environment or citizens. For people in the area, I want to give a little bit of a detail. This one here shows the two areas. So the Grayling East airspace, which is 10,000 feet here, and then the Grayling West, which is here. It also includes these two. These are more restricted airspace because they're over firing range areas. But the west here, which it goes down to 500 feet, that is, right here's the city of Grayling. Here's Waters. Levels you can't see here because I'm not zoomed in. I will switch to that picture now so you can zoom in and see. So Levels is right here. We are right in the middle of the Grayling West MOA they're proposing. And that would mean 1,600 flights a year, almost 1,600 based on that chart. That could be as low as 500 feet. All of these areas would be impacted as well. They would just be in the Grayling East, which is a little bit higher. That would still be year-round flights, 1,600. People in these areas out here they don't usually have to experience the military training like we do. Because I live a lot closer to the existing training lands than like these cities. But it's a significant impact, and I want people to see the visual That document isn't easy to read. So I've also created an overlay. We asked the military for one, but they didn't have one. So they sent me some Google Earth files that had the locations of the proposed airspace MOAs. And I created an overlay of the Camp Grayling expansion map from the DNR and the Grayling West and Grayling East and the two new restricted airspace areas using Google Earth files that they sent me. So they're not a perfect lineup. I did my best here. If you zoom in, you can see in some areas, I-75 didn't quite line up. Like down here, you'll see a yellow line and a little bit of a red line split. But they're as close as we're going to get because they don't have one that shows the overlay. So this shows how Camp Grayling's land proposal coincides with this airspace expansion. Now, if we ask Colonel Myers, he says it does not. They're separate. They're not linked in any way. And at one of the public input sessions in October, I believe it was October 18th, he was asked about any potential airspace expansions because he made a statement about not being able to do certain exercises in the proposed expansion areas because they don't control the airspace. And less than a month later, November 14th, the Air National Guard releases this airspace proposal. So breeds a lot of distrust. I really don't understand how the Air National Guard could be working on this airspace proposal since 2014, and the commander of this camp wasn't aware of it. So that's just my skepticism showing. But to close out this section of the video, this here, Area 6, falls in this new Grayling East MOA. So the entire area, well, almost all of Area 3, the entire Area 6 fall in the new 500-foot elevation airspace. Part of Area 6 falls over into the proposed Grayling. Oh, sorry, I said it backwards, I think. This is the Grayling East that has the 500-foot elevation. Part of Area 6 is in the Grayling West. So I'm really hoping they deny these because I don't want to have to hear the loud noise year-round. There have been residents in other states. Vermont was the most recent one I read articles about, where the residents have been impacted so negatively that the military recommends soundproofing their homes and just staying inside. So that's not my idea of pure Michigan. I live up here because it's peaceful and quiet. And yeah, I've lived here for, my family's been here for 6 generations, both sides. And we accept that there is existing military training, but nobody anticipated this. We didn't expect this kind of expansion. We didn't expect this kind of expansion. We didn't expect any of this. And we don't want it to be approved. So I'm doing my best to spread awareness and make people see the visual of what this looks like. That will be my conclusion for the airspace explanation. And if you have any questions, feel free to join our Camp Grayling Expansion Facebook group or post comments on these videos or email the email address that is going to be in the notes of this video. Just make your voice heard. It makes a difference. Well, now that we have covered the 2 big proposals on expansion, I would like to share some just points, ending points. I do not believe pure Michigan should be used as military proving grounds. It is pure Michigan. It's not pure military, and we can't have both. Military is one of the largest contaminators, and we are surrounded by 20% of the world's fresh water. freshwater, the largest freshwater source in North America. And with all of the droughts and the big lakes drying up and the scarcity of clean fresh water in the world, I don't know why this is being chosen as the area for this expansion and this kind of training. There have to be areas that are less ecologically sensitive that this training can be conducted in. I'm trying to say it as nicely as possible, but I find it irritating that this is being described as the ideal place. It is probably one of the most ecologically sensitive and valuable areas in our country. There has to be a better location for this. Another point, I think public land, even if it's leased by the military for training, should not be leased or used by private entities for testing. The military doesn't pay the DNR to lease this land. Subleasing and allowing private industry to use it seems like an abuse of the sacrifice Michigan citizens have made in the name of patriotism. So Michigan citizens have already sacrificed more public land than any other state, and now they want to more than double it. I mean, I don't understand that either. They don't pay for it. Citizens have to pay for permits to go out and do special use activities on the lands if they want to go in a group. Yet the military can get all of this land without paying a lease fee and then sublease it to private entities or bring them out here to treat it as their proving grounds. I don't agree with that either. So after talking about it for a while, I get kind of annoyed. So I'm going to read a couple of quotes here that I think are notable, ones that are publicly available in articles. There's a DBusiness magazine article out there that has a lot of quotes in it that raised a lot of concerns with citizens. It is one that is talking about the private industry using the land. In that one, Colonel Myers said that businesses have been able to take advantage of military resources at a disgustingly inexpensive rate. And one industry partner was able to use 3,000 acres for just $150 a day. A citizen would never get away with that. Another quote from him was, "Ever since we unveiled the NADWC, my phone has been ringing off the hook with private industry trying to get into this space. And the advantage is that we have a lot of availability and a lot of land for folks to come out here and play." Another one is Brigadier General Brian Teff. The quote from him is, "Those two words are very key: own and operate. We schedule, we manage, and we own the largest overland airspace complex east of the Mississippi River. When you combine all of those things together on the airspace side and see how it overlaps and integrates with the ground maneuver space, we have tremendous capabilities in Michigan." That to me seems like they're already, those are only two of about 15 quotes you can find out there of them bragging about how much land they already have, how much airspace they already have, how massive their military capabilities in Michigan already are, and now they want more. I don't think the citizens of Michigan should be sacrificing anymore. I think Governor Whitmer needs to tell her staff to put Michiganders first and say no to this expansion proposal. And the next quote is one that kind of brings home my point about proving grounds. It is Michael Evans from AM General, an industry partner that likes to use Camp Grayling's facilities or the NADWC's facilities. His quote is, "We can fail and not have to worry about the whole world coming down on us as if we were in a formal test." And to me, that would be what they would do if they were at a real military proving grounds. And those areas are already contaminated. They're there for that purpose. I think all of this testing should be done at a proving ground. Michigan should not be treated like one. The other issue or point I have is on the environmental issues. Camp Grayling has already caused significant PFAS contamination in the Grayling area. They have been extremely slow to recognize, acknowledge, and implement any kind of remediation plan. They have done very little from my perspective. Even the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy has sent them violation notices because this contamination was discovered in 2017, and here we are in 2023, and they are still releasing PFAS contaminants into Lake Marguerite. They are not addressing things the way they're legally supposed to. We have PFAS contamination in Oscoda at the old Wordsmith, I can never say it right, but it's the old Air Force Base up there. There has been PFAS contamination discovered in Alpena. And we have our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, in the news, on the news, in my news feed, almost daily, of some lawsuit against a private company for cleaning up PFAS, along with settlements for local citizens. And yet we see nothing about the military contamination in Michigan. And here we are talking about giving them another 162,000 acres of public state land. I just don't, I can't reconcile that with logic. I can't. Another piece of this is the public perception that citizens are being ignored, and political agendas and military careers and military goals and potential defense industry dollars, or even just relationships, are being given priority over citizens and the environment. And that is not acceptable to citizens. I mean, there are a lot opposed. I will scroll some lists at the end of this video to show just how many. When a local citizen asked Colonel Myers what the cost or what the benefit was to local citizens for sacrificing so much land, he said protection. But we have a lot of legitimate safety concerns for Camp Grayling's current layout and current footprint. This is without any expansion. In the joint land use study that was done, it was noted that most of the city of Grayling is in the danger zone for the Camp Grayling Airport. And it specifically noted that an accident or a significant accident at the airport could cripple our emergency services because of their proximity to the airport. So that's not safety. Another part of this is, how is it protection when you can't drink your water? You can't eat the fish. You can't eat the deer. And nothing is being done about it. It's not protection. Now, I am not anti-military in the slightest. I value our military. I understand that they're the reason I am free to speak like this. But I feel there should be limits on what they can do in the name of freedom. And I believe there are less ecologically sensitive areas this can be done in. So we need our Attorney General Nessel to stand up for our citizens, to the military, and not just private corporation. We need our DNR to stand up to the military and say, no, you can't have any more land, not one more acre. And we need our Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy to force them to clean up the contamination they've already caused. Now, I understand innovation and working with industry, but the experimental testing, the electronic warfare that needs to be done that is not known, we don't know what the long-term effects are on humans and wildlife, those should be done in less inhabited areas and less ecologically sensitive areas. So I am asking everybody, please share this. I know it's extremely long, it's a lot of information, and I have cut it down multiple times trying to take stuff out, but we need the public to be aware. We need emails to the DNR. We need phone calls to the DNR. We need written letters to the DNR. We need people to voice their opinions on the airspace expansion. Send them to that email address, even if it's past the deadline. I'll look for a contact at the FAA, since they're the ones who will approve the airspace expansion ultimately. We just need to make our voices heard. Please share. Join our Facebook group if you want more information. We are constantly sharing new articles and new documents And when there are meetings that are being held for public comment or public Q&A sessions, there's a website, 230isenough.com. There is a change.org petition to stop Camp Grayling expansion. And we have a GoFundMe page to help spread awareness. So thank you for your time. I have taken up enough of it. Have a good night.